What does it mean to live a resilient life? I'm Ryan Manion. I lost my brother to war and my mom to cancer, and I've learned a lot about myself along the way. Now, as the CEO of Travis Manion Foundation, I'm on a journey to explore what it means to be resilient against life's many challenges. Join me and some incredible guests as we ask ourselves the hard questions and define what it means to struggle well. Well, we are back for another episode of the Resilient Life podcast, and I am here at the Office of the Secretary of Veterans Affairs, Doug Collins. It's not my first time talking to you, but it is always an honor to be with you and to hear from you, and really appreciate the time that you're giving us today.
Oh, no, I enjoyed doing this. It's great, and I appreciate what y'all do as well, and from all that you do from the foundation, from everything else from the podcast. It really helps, and I think it connects people. And so, look, this is it's my joy to be here with you to do that, and welcome you into the office here where we've met before. We've never done the podcast here, so
yeah. Well, and I was telling Morgan, all the times I've been in this office, I didn't ever look out that window.
Yeah, you need to look out that window.
Well, Morgan said, wait, before you got to get the best view ever. And I said,
oh, yeah.
I don't know. I've been here with many VA secretaries throughout the years. I've never looked out that window. Yep. And no one has ever told me to look out that window, Morgan. So thank you for that.
Yeah, well, no, it's pretty cool. I tell everybody, I said, this is the last choice of offices, so I just said I took this one, but it has a great view.
Well, I imagine, too, when you look out that window, and and for those that don't see the view, it is a view of the White House. I mean, a perfect view of the White House. When you look out that window, do you think of the weight that comes with that?
Oh, you do.
Yeah.
Well, and because it's not just the White House. It's the if you look out this view, you got the White House, but you got the Washington Monument, the Jefferson Memorial. You got the Pentagon is off to the right, and you've got National Reagan Airport. Coming back and forth. You can see, of course, a little bit further, you can see over toward Arlington a little bit. But you just see, when you think about where you're at, and the Treasury, of course, building is right here as well. We're part of the oldest, in the oldest part of D.C.
Yeah.
And I think, so when you think about it and you look at it from the perspective of what we do, has in terms of history.
Yep. I
think that's an important part, but it also is a reminder that in between Washington and Lincoln, which I can't see Lincoln, it's OEB covers it, but between there you have World War II, Korea, Vietnam. You now have the new GWAT, the GWAT where it will go.
Yep.
But then you have Desert Storm Memorial, which is going up pretty quickly. So it's just, this is sort of like the reminder of our nation's sacrifice.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So I want to talk a little bit. Again, I've had the privilege and honor to hear from you and to hear all of the great things that you have been doing with the VA. And one of the things that always stuck out to me when you first took this role is you stepped into it talking about turning the VA from a bureaucratic institution into a service organization.
Yep.
And I loved when I would hear you say it that way. When you look at the past year, where has that actually shown up in a way that a veteran can feel?
I think they can feel it from the minute. They should be able to feel it from the minute they walk through the door. Mm-hmm. Whether it be your disability, whether it be your hospital, your clinic, even our cemeteries, whatever. Because really, the biggest thing, they always talk about what do we do, and I think the biggest thing we did was actually say the veteran comes first at the VA.
Yeah.
All right. So from my perspective, if the veteran comes first at the VA, then what does that mean? That means that everything you do revolves around that premise. So I've begun to describe it a little bit like the FedEx commercial. If you've ever seen that FedEx commercial where the FedEx driver comes to the door and there's a sign on the door that says, "Bring box to the beach." Now, I want you to think for a second here. Deeper meaning in that is that FedEx driver could have left the box on the porch at the address it was delivered to, got back in his truck, and left. Okay, and they're doing a cartoonish kind of stuff, but he could have gotten in that truck and left. Nobody would have said he did anything wrong.
Right.
Nobody. It was not his determination to go to a beach down the block to give them anything. He took the extra step himself, saying customer orientation, veteran orientation, from our perspective, I'm going to go to the beach and give them the wedding rings. Okay. I've empowered every employee of the VA to be that person. And if they don't believe it, then hear it from me again. You're empowered to be that person. If you're in housekeeping and somebody comes up to you and says, hey, I need to go to the canteen, take them to the canteen. If a nurse comes up, if a nurse needs to do something and, they need to do it now and it's within reason, it's a perfectly legitimate thing, but it's not normal or it goes to take the step.
Yeah.
So, and I've done that with our senior leaders. I think this is where the other part of this comes in. Senior leaders now are under basically direction to be senior leaders. Quit being middle managers. I had too many of our senior leaders who believed, unfortunately, that their job was a middle management in some ways because they didn't think they were empowered to make a decision. So they would pass everything up and then nothing would happen. And,
bureaucracy
the bureaucracy at its finest. Yeah. And also that is sort of a risk aversion.
Yes.
CYA. So, I mean, we look at this. So now they know that I'm holding them accountable. Our reorganization plan is for our hospital, which is mainly for the above the hospital level, has been for that one whole purpose is to say, medical center directors, you got to run your hospitals, visiting directors, you're not going to, and we're actually putting, this sounds crazy. They were really technically not held accountable for their budgets or for their personnel.
That's wild.
Now they are.
Yeah.
Now they're getting it, and it's going to take them. And there's some chafing.
Yeah.
Okay. I shared this to a reporter the other day. We have a lot of folks invested in a bad system. Their only way that they know the VA is to gripe about it. So all of a sudden, if we begin to take away things that they've griped about for years, they can't send out letters saying we're fighting the VA to fight for X. No, well, the VA is getting better.
Right. And
so and I hate to say that, but it's just true. There are some that would rather the VA be this compliant, willing whipping post for all the problems of the world. And I've just said we're not going to be that anymore. We're going to be the organization we have. And the numbers have shown it. So it's not just a feeling that the wait times in getting into our hospital or getting into community care are dropping. Look, we need doctors just like everybody else. And Congress screams about this all the time. You got staffing, you need to hire more staff. Okay, every hospital in the country does. And yet you also, Congress, by the way, keep me at a salary cap for my top doctors that I can't pay what the others do.
Yeah.
So help me or quit yelling. One or the other. You're not helping. Yelling doesn't help. Raise your voice doesn't help. I can yell louder than you can. But you can't do this continually. And so I think those are the kind of things that we see. Are there always going to be some issues dealing with VA? Yes. But right now there's a pride that we can fix it.
Yeah.
So look, when you have the disability claims numbers drop like a rock, like we have from 260,000 when you and I first met till we're at 82,000 now on the 125 day. We had over 1 million just sitting there claims. We're at 500,000 now. We're actually processing about as many as we're getting. I mean, we're getting this back to a day-to-day function. All of that happened because we said the veteran comes first at the VA.
Yeah, and it takes time.
It does, and we still got a ways to go.
Well, I think one of the coolest things, because I remember when I first sat down with you, we sat right here at this table, and one of the things we talked about was you making sure that veterans knew to enroll at the VA. And that was a big thing for you. And there have been, in the last year alone, over 100,000 veterans have signed up. And that says something. Yeah. Like, that really says something. So what do you think? I mean, again, you're going out to different veteran leaders, and clearly you're putting that message out. But, like, why do you think that's a drastic change? Like, where do you think that comes from?
Well, there's even better terminology. That's in the last 4 months.
Oh, okay. So 4 months.
Yeah.
There you go.
We had a lot, our normal, but we've increased it just to our fastest quarter growth that we've probably ever seen, because we started to use it. Again, it goes back. Think about this. I'm Air Force, I've been Air Force, been Navy, Army, everybody. We have the greatest military in the world, period. Agreed. End of statement. Nobody else can come close. They may think they can, but they can't come close. Okay, they want to grab that end of the tiger, go right ahead. It will not end well. So the thing about it is though is but it's because they bring now, especially under President Trump, bring everything to bear. Yeah. When they get to the battlefield and under Pete and everybody, it's go win the battle.
Right.
It's not let's think about just obliterate and go. Yep. Which is what they're supposed to do. That's what they're trained to do. It's very similar to us. We had tools that we wasn't using. We had, I found out that we had it over for over a year or more, probably even before I got here, a system in which we could contact every veteran in this country. We didn't use it. We didn't know how to use it. Well, how do we started implementing everything we do now. And that's what's really has driven it. Great number I saw yesterday is it the highest growth in that 100,000 so far has been in the 24 to 35 group. The highest growth. And 11% of those were in what we would call red areas. They issues, mental health issues, financial issues, homeless issues. We were increasing in that 11% growth right there. That's what we're supposed to be doing. And I think so. I think people are trying it again. I tell people all the time, if you've had a bad experience with the VA, look, I'm not apologizing for something I had no control over, but I am saying, give us another try. And if it's something there, we'll fix it. Yeah. Again, we have this idea that the VA is some mythical creature out there. It's not. We're an organization full of great men and women who are trying many times to do their best. Does everybody show up with their A game? No, neither do you or I, every day. We want to think we do, but there are moments we don't. Yeah. And everybody's going to notice the moment we don't. Nobody jumps up and says, wow, Ryan was on her A game today. No. And so it's setting that standard is, I think, for us, as you say.
Well, I think, too, one of the biggest things I found is, like, again, you're right. The VA is an organization, just like every organization has its challenges. But what I love about what you've done is you've been very intentional about the standard you want and the standard that's expected of the people that work in the VA.
Yep. I've done something, and some would say, well, Doug, you lead a 450,000 person organization. You got to have all of this, you got to have these high level meetings. I've cut out most of the big meetings. There was a meeting that went on here, and I'll share this. And again, I'm just pointing it out, just the difference. Yes. But it was before I got here. And they were meeting every day at like 8 o'clock, and they had let everybody go out of the building. So it was like 80 people on this Zoom call. And it was going on when my team first came back in. So it was from the previous administration. And they met for about an hour, and everybody just sort of jabber and talked.
A daily 8 a.m.
A daily 8 a.m. And most of the people wasn't even here. So the folks who were here, like 2 or 3 people in the conference room, which holds 70 people easily. There was just all, and the screens were around. It's sort of a COVID era throwback, if you would. But when we first got here, my former chief of staff, Chris Sarek, said, well, number one, these are going to be in person. And number two, if you don't need to be here, we're going to close this down. When I got here, I did about 2 of them, and I said, well, this is over. So what we did is we then took all my senior leaders. We meet every Thursday. They have one slide that they're to bring, because, again, I meet with them throughout the week, too. And also my undersecretaries and other these senior leaders can walk through my door at any point. They come say, hey, I need to talk to you. They get to talk to me.
I saw it here today.
It is. They come talk to me. Yeah. So, but then we went from meetings that were taking an hour, 45 minutes to an hour and a half. We do them in 20 minutes. Yeah. And I have everything I need. They get the instructions, and we go out and do it. It's just a matter of, I go down to the basics. And folks, and if this increases our load, fine. I have a large social media presence. People on not only personal, but on our official VA accounts. So, we monitor those accounts. This has never happened before in the history of the VA. We open anywhere from 8 to 25 constituent cases a week off of comments to my social media. Yeah. We have actually helped people who are, as I had one time tell me, they sent a goodbye letter to me that they were leaving. Our folks saw it. This person is alive today.
Can you share that story? I know you've shared that with me before, but I think
it was in that Thursday meeting, and I was turning, looking at the screen, and went to Linda Davis, who's our VEO person. She's a wonderful lady who's known all of this for years. And she said, I have one last thing to tell you. And she said, a gentleman sent you a goodbye letter last night. Well, of course, that got my attention. I turned around and I said, what are you talking about? She said, no, you don't know. She said, you didn't know this, and I don't. She said, but before you don't understand, we got to them. They're alive. But this person reached out, again, not in a way that you, or especially me from my age, I wouldn't think of putting stuff online, but this person did. Yeah. And it was a cry. That could have gone unheard. But I've got great people who are watching it, because we developed a plan that said, hey, there are people actually doing, reaching out. And so this person was alive because of that. And so we're using everything that we can to help people. I mean, and again, if I could solve everybody's individual problem, I would. I solve everyone that I can get my hands on. Okay. But it's a whole environment vibe difference. If you have the SEC VA, I'm sitting here and I can take time to have a random comment on my wife's Facebook page, which I don't recommend doing, but they send those to us.
Yeah.
I take those and I get them to the proper people. If I can do it, anybody in this organization can do it.
Right.
Nobody is above helping a veteran.
And I think, again, when you talk about the VA, what I love most is you talk about the veteran. Like it's not about the numbers. It's not about, it's about the individual veteran. And I think that shines through in a big way. One of the things I wanted to just briefly touch on today, because it's kind of hot topic in the news around veterans, but the president just signed an executive order for ibogaine. But before that, the VA had already started studies on psychedelics with veterans. Talk to me about where you guys, we had conversations last year about this, but give me an update on where things are with that.
Would love to. And I appreciate the president, taking leadership and stepping forward. Now, let me just be aware for everybody listening here. This is a process.
Yes.
Stuff like MDMA, known as ecstasy, Molly, whatever you want to call it, MDMA, psilocybin, ketamine, even LSD. So we've already been doing these studies, and we've seen some good results.
Yeah.
Okay, clinical studies. They're not. You don't just walk in. I heard this one poor veteran one day. Just give me the shot. It'll make me better. No, it won't. We got to have. There's some. I think there's a discussion, especially like with MDMA, surrounding that. There's almost 120 clinical hours per patient.
Wow.
Okay, so it's not give me a shot. Let me lay here, talk about my feelings for 30 minutes and go home. It's 120 hours. That's a lot of hours.
Yeah.
That's 3 weeks. If you combine it, but it's just combined into this sessions. So we're working that through. Ibogaine has been an off limits for the U.S. market. Okay,
Yep.
I know many veterans and you as well who have gone overseas. We don't have a lot of study from there. Now we know that there has been some great success. You and I personally have friends who they're clean. They're off antidepressants. But we also know that there's been some issues. We know that there's been some death issues. We know there's been some heart issues. But we don't have that data. I've been begging. That's one of the things behind the scenes. When people talk to me about ibogaine, I said, look, I'm willing to do whatever we can do with the proper protocols and the ability to do it. This is going to give us the ability to do it. It's going to take a little bit of time for FDA. Even if FDA sort of sends it out today, please hear us out there for whether you're a veteran or not. It's going to take a little time to get that process in. It's just not going to go and all of a sudden it be available at every psychiatrist office in the country. There's the issue of payments, which is going to take a little bit longer as well, but also these protocols. So hopefully as we work through it this year, into next year, we'll hopefully by this time next year, my hope is that we'll be able to have the protocols in place to make sure we're doing it properly and can study it and to make sure that we're doing it right. I'm not ever denying what people's experiences have been. In fact, that's the reason I'm intrigued by it. I want to see it happen. But there has to be the understanding that we do this in a proper way, that nobody feels experimented, that nobody, haphazardly, I've heard some comments, this is being haphazardly done. Not in my book, it's not. Not from the VA side. Somebody else, out in the world may think they can, but not on our side. We're going to do it the way we need to and do it as quickly as we possibly can. But it would have never happened if President Trump had not said, let's make this happen. Let's do this. And he listened to the voices of folks who have had the success. He wants to help. He has a compassionate heart for this. But he also understands, I think, the bigger picture, and we're going to make sure that we do what he's asking.
Well, and you know what I love most about this? Like, again, the order that he signed was not ibogaine treatment for veterans, but veterans remain at the forefront for like incredible breakthroughs in therapies and different treatments. And this is just one example of that.
Well, you take, it's like, whether it be military, there's certain things for those of us in the military that are common to us. Okay, frankly, there's not a large group of the percentage of people. Let's maybe do it this way. If you had 100 veterans, they're going to have a higher percentage, especially if they're special forces or infantry or other. They're going to have a higher number of per population of TBI, PTSD issues, depression issues, those kind of things, just because of where they go through. Very similar to firefighter, police officer, others, especially on the PTSD side and the CTE, some to the CTE side as well.
Yeah.
So it's going to be higher than the general public. So yes, what I want to make sure of is that we don't use veterans in the term that's sort of the reason we push stuff, because it's a veteran. Because I want to make sure that veterans are viewed as part of the whole.
Yeah. No,
and that we're going to do that, and not as well. If there's several terms in this city that sort of get you free passes, and this is my old legislator days. If you say in Capitol Hill, if you were to say it's for the children or for veterans, nobody wants to be on the wrong side of those two issues.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, even if they say, if it was, give everybody, chocolate ice cream for life. I know that's terrible for everything else, but yes, I'll vote for it. Because the next ad, I'll get a 30-second ad saying, Joe Smith voted against chocolate ice cream for all veterans. He hates veterans.
So true.
Look, I've been in this. That's the one reason I sit in this chair much differently than anybody else sits in this chair. I've lived that world, so I get it. Look, Congress has to be Congress, and I get that. Okay, but yeah, it also we have to have realistic expectations out there. So I'm very excited about where we are. I'm very excited that veterans. I'm very excited also that we're going to even readjust. That we are starting within, hopefully, the next 30 days. So we had our own MDMA veteran VA only study, which we've not had before. We always were either partnered or with others. This is going to be our own. So we're excited about the protocols that we've set up for that. So it's some good stuff out there. And if it works, it works.
Yeah. I think it's exciting nonetheless, just that we are kind of taking that step as a country.
Yep.
I love it. Okay. I want to shift for a second away from the role and more to you.
Okay.
So I think most people know, but if they don't, you are a post 9/11 veteran yourself.
Yes.
You have deployed.
Yes.
So that's another thing I love about you sitting in this role. But when you were deployed as a chaplain.
Yep.
You were walking with people in some of their hardest moments.
Very much so.
Are there any names or stories from that time that still stay with you?
Yeah, there is. I remember, for all that deployed, because I was in Balad, and we had became a very large base. We had 3 fighter units wings that came out of there, 2 active, 1 guard reserve. So I saw, and I was a nighttime flight line chaplain. So I frankly think that I had the best deployment in the world, because I was by myself, except for the chaplain in the hospital. I was by myself. I got to go wherever I wanted to go. I got to go take care of people. I went from Kingpin to the air traffic control tower to out. I think my statute of limitations is up now. Out beyond the wire with folks, and walking with them and talking with them. So it was really interesting. But the hospital time, I would have to do 1 day a week at the hospital, because the nighttime chaplain had to have a night off. So we did 6-day weeks. So my night, I would go in. It was the same every week, and I went from a stretch in late September through October.
What year was that?
This was 2008. 2008. Yeah. And we were sort of at the end of the surge, but we're still there. If you put in perspective, if you remember, and I remember this because frankly they were still in the hospital when I got there. You remember, if there was a time when they toward Mosul up north that we were starting to come out of it, and then they had a big suicide bomber that bombed a political that had a lot of the leadership, mayors and stuff. Well, I came about 3 weeks after that, and there were still some folks that were still in our hospital at the time. I think that's also something people don't understand. In the Balad Hospital, which was pretty state of the art for it. We had our people, we had other soldiers from other countries that were there, we had Iraqi nationals, we had children, and we had insurgents.
Wow.
And our doctors and nurses treated everyone with the utmost care. We're the civilized country in the world. I get infuriated when people who take their freedoms here to protest, criticize, and whatever. I'm all about the First Amendment. You go shout to your own, but don't you tell me that my doctors and my soldiers and my airmen are cruel, or that we take care. I have watched them literally come in with an explosion, and we bring in ours and the insurgent, and our doctors worked on them the same. Yeah. So don't go there with me.
Yeah.
And but one of the things is Stars and Stripes they would have a listing every week of those that were killed in action. Okay. Very familiar. Had their pictures. And 1 week, I can remember I had my hand on or prayed over 5 of them, because it was just one of those times. I was in that cycle. And I remember one individual, and I can still see him. And I had seen his buddy on the other side, and his buddy was shot up pretty good, but he was there. They had lost a couple already that I hadn't seen, but there was some still there that was wounded. And I began to talk to him, and we were just sharing and getting that. And all he wanted to know was talk about his friend. He said, "How is he doing?" Because the way the beds were set up, he was on this side, and his friend was on this side, more of a ICU kind of setup. And I said, he said, "You got to go check on him." I said, I will. So I went over. Blonde hair, blue eyed. My oldest son is, at the time, he's still blonde hair, blue eyed. And the nurses were there. There was not a lot they could do.
Yeah.
He was there, but not as well as he's not there.
Yeah.
And I remember staying with him and staying with the nurses, and we prayed, and we were, they were doing everything. His temperature was rising. They were trying to get him to Germany and get him out. I went back. I had to go out and do a couple of things, and then come back, and he was still there. I went back the next day because I was just curious, and they had gotten him out. The next day they had flown him out a later flight that morning, and a couple others. And so I didn't, we get them in, get them out.
Yeah.
Most amazing thing, the enduring image of Iraq is the flag draped underneath the awning, and the stretchers coming in from the helicopters to the hospital. They would go under, and it was called Heroes Highway. And it was so if it's an enduring image. All you got to do is sort of look it up. But Balad, Heroes Highway, and you see this big, huge flag. So if they're on the stretcher and they look up,
they see it.
They see a flag. They say they know the home. 98% of those that were actually alive when they came under that flag made it out of Iraq alive. Now, we lost some when they got home.
Yeah.
But we got them home. The individual that made such he was there. He got home. I didn't know what happened. And then, those Stars and Stripes were about a week and a half late, where they do it. And when he came up, I saw him and several of the others, and I saw his face. And it had the state U.S. because they sort of put where they died, but it was there, and I knew he made it home. And I knew he made it at least to the States, and his family hopefully were there. And those are the moments that you remember so much, because I had I would go see these, young men, many. And I remember something that was really interesting, Ron. I was a pastor for 11 years in a church, so I was in hospitals all the time. I was a chaplain in the fire department, police department. I'd seen death. I've been with people on their last breath. I'd seen families scream. I've been yelled at. I've been cussed at. No, that's not right. You're lying to me. No, your son, your daughter's gone. I mean, they're dead. Been all that, the noise of it. Yeah. And I say that for the noise. If you've ever been to an emergency room after a wreck or after something, it's noise.
Yep.
Okay. Not good. I still don't do well with it. And so one of these days when I fill out that now to be shortened form of disability, I will discuss this. But there's a certain pitch of scream that I don't do well with. But I was walking back to my office from the ER one night after I had just walked one to our morgue, because we made sure that each were never left alone, and we made sure they got out. And I got back to the door, and I stopped. And when I stopped, the first thing that came to me, as I said, it's quiet. Because it was the middle of the night. Mm-hmm. None of the offices were going. I'm on a hallway. But I said, this is just deathly silence. And it got to me for a second, because I knew that within somewhere in the neighborhood of 12 to 14 to 20 hours, there was going to be noise.
Yeah.
You've experienced that.
Yeah, it's funny. I often say, like, right after we got the knock, it was just chaos.
Yeah.
And screams, and yeah.
And I'm sitting there saying, I'm able to process this in the sense of, it's quiet. I'm going to get a cup of coffee. I'm going to walk around. I'm going to go back to my next job. It's over.
Yeah.
But I said it's really just beginning. So around Memorial Day in particular, there's a legacy factor that your deceased loved one is still carrying on.
Yeah.
You found an amazing way to express that. Many may not have that way, but it got me that night interact as a reminder that what we do seems to be so isolated, but the reality was not where we were in the reality of war. It was in the homes that were getting ready to be notified of something that had happened, and it just struck me as surreal that night. I've carried that with me. It's several of those times.
Just that quiet passage of time.
It is. And it's one of the things why for me, I've gotten where now quiet is my go-to place, I guess. Yeah. I just be quiet.
I think about, obviously, we're talking about those that didn't make it home, but then you think about the ones that did, and mm-hmm. the grief and, some of the things they're dealing with when they are coming back, right?
Oh,
and that they're not processing, the things they don't talk about, these memories that you have that just mm-hmm. don't fade. From your perspective, both personally and serving as the VA secretary, like, if you could dial it down to like one thing, like to the veteran that's out there, like what is the first thing that they can be doing to help themselves work through that?
And this is going to, and please don't see this as contradictory on what we just talked about. Mm-hmm. The first thing they can do is not to disconnect.
Yeah.
Okay. There needs to be balance in your life. For me, that quietness, don't associate quietness for me as being that you have to handle it on your own, that it's all about you. That quietness for me it's my balancing point. I have people that I can pick up the phone and call.
Yeah.
Okay. I think the big thing for a veteran out there today, whether you're coming back from what's going on now or from even 20 years ago, which meaning to me is I'm at 18 years away from those, and those I visually see them as if it was yesterday or today. You got to have when you take the uniform off, you'll never really take it off. Okay, it'll always be there. It's underneath. It's sort of that skin, if you would. And I make this comment a lot. And I said, so that one thing is this: when you raised your hand, you said you leave no one behind. When you depart from the military, whether it's after 2 years or 40 years, that part of your oath never leaves you.
Yeah.
So why is it when we get home, we don't keep up with our buddies? We don't, even civilians, find the ways to connect. I tell them all the time, if you are at home and you're struggling, reach out to somebody, text somebody. If you're doing good, but you haven't heard from a friend of yours, just call them up. That's the best thing you can do. Sometimes people just need to know somebody's there.
Yeah.
They don't need a counseling session. Maybe they may need somebody to drive them somewhere. Sometimes they just need somebody to sit there and listen, or just to sit there and talk about anything to keep them moving.
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes that call or text, just hey, how you doing, buddy? Like, it gets them further than they can even imagine.
Oh yeah. Okay. How many stories have you ever heard about? I was getting ready to do X,
Yeah.
and I got a text from an old friend.
Yeah.
Don't underestimate it. Look, I believe there's a higher. I believe that God is in control of that. I believe that God knows exactly what He's doing. I do believe that He is active in our world, and I do believe that He places through His Holy Spirit things that we don't understand. But if you get that urge, don't overlook it.
Yeah.
If there's something about, I don't know, sometimes if you ever went through this life, some people may call it, they don't maybe a faith perspective, they may call it something else. But you ever just had something come in your head and you can't get it out? For me, I believe that's God saying, hey, I got something for you. You call it whatever you want, but do it.
Yeah.
Because it's there for a reason.
I also think too, just again, what could a veteran do? Pick up a phone, check on your buddies. Like, I think sometimes we overcomplicate things.
Yeah. Civilians need to understand as well.
Yeah.
And, it's so funny. And this just hit my mind, and I have weird thoughts. You've been around me long enough now. I was thinking, we have military and civilian. It's like the muggles and non-muggles for the Harry Potter world out there. And we're really not separate, but we are.
Yeah.
I mean, whether you admit your military time changed you or not, it did. Now, some of it may be bad. I'm not going to say that. You just had a bad experience, but it still changed you.
Right.
And so a civilian they can empathize, they can sympathize, but they can't put themselves in the exact same position.
Yeah.
And so, but what they can do is also be that listening post. I have folks who have never served before ask me all the time, what can I do? Well, just be a friend.
Yeah.
That's the best thing you can do. Fly your flags, say thank you or whatever. Sometimes just be a friend. They just need a friend.
Yeah, I think, again, I didn't serve. I grew up in a military household. So, I understood what military service was about from a very young age.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that the 99% that don't serve, I think we as Americans, we have a responsibility and an obligation to have an understanding of what that service means. That's your civic duty.
Yeah.
You may not have served, but you need to be there for those that did.
Oh yeah. I think, and again, some people get, oh, I can't believe you bring it. Because it was from the movie, A Few Good Men. I mean, Nicholson's rant is so true.
Yeah.
Now, again, it's a little blunt, it's a little harsh, and everybody wants to say, let's solve, but we need them on that wall.
Yeah.
You're not on the wall. You're not out carrying a line. You're not out in the ship. You're not on flight line, and that doesn't mean you're any less person. God bless you. That wasn't your calling.
Yeah.
But it is theirs. And you don't have any. That old quote is so true. It is not the newspaper reporter that gave us freedom of speech. It's not the lawyer that gave us, the due process. It's the soldier. It's the person who fought and died and bled and lived that gave us those rights. And so to think that you just are a special place in the world, that it just came to you without a fight, you're wrong. And, it sounds so trite, but it's true. The freedoms we possess were not given to us. They were taken.
Secretary, I think that every single time I'm at Arlington, when
Yep.
I'm in Section 60, like that is one of the first things that runs through my head when I'm there is just, it never, ever gets any lighter having that understanding that the freedoms that we hold so dear are because of these men and women that are lying right here.
We did it's I guess sort of the 51st, but it's 50 years after Vietnam, the last year of Vietnam. Pete and I was at the Vietnam Memorial a few weeks ago and both spoke. And one of the issues that we brought up in some of the Vietnam veterans that actually brought this up was said that it's not, you can disagree with a conflict, you can disagree with a war, but you never take it out on the warrior.
Yeah.
The warrior's doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And for all these, again, we can disagree if we should be in Iran or not right now. That's perfectly legitimate discussion out there. Okay, I think personally after 47 years, about time. But there's some stuff but there's legitimacy there. I mean, I would prefer our folks being home, cooking hamburgers with their family. Okay, I'd rather those 3 carrier groups be out doing port calls. But remember, if even then, in quote peacetime, it is their presence that keeps a lot of bad from us.
Right.
And so I think people forget that.
With everything that's happening right now as we lead into this Memorial Day, one of the things that I always think is, it's just another reminder that there are men and women that are serving and sacrificing and giving their lives for us. And I think as we close out today, one of the things I'd love you to do is just if you had a message as we lead into Memorial Day and we think about these families that have given so much, what's your message to them?
I think one of the messages that I would want to consider not only to the families but also to our country as a whole. You're given a gift, and the gift is 2 days in which you remember a group of people who did great things, one who gave all, the other day in November in which you honor everyone who serves. I believe Memorial Day is not about those currently serving. It's about those who have gave that last full measure of devotion. That doesn't take away from the service going on. We have 2 separate days, and there's a reason for that. You honor the value of the life in November. You honor the reason that we fight every day by those who did not come home.
Yeah.
And Memorial Day. So for the families, even as recently as a few weeks, remember that the place at the table that is empty was filled at one point, even if it was 50 years ago or 20 years ago or 2 months ago. But also remember that it was not, I think for folks, I want them to know at Memorial Day, whether you go to Arlington or you go to any of our cemeteries, whatever, remember that you're there because a person died, yes, but you're not really there because they died. You're there because they lived.
Yeah.
And I want the folks to remember that. We get into this trap of asking why, and the real question we see is shouldn't be why, it's what now? What do I do now with what is given to me by a brother or a sister or a loved one, a husband, a wife? What did they give me while I was here? What brought me on any given day? We could sit in this office right now, and there's at least probably 15 funerals to 20 funerals going on at Arlington right now. You and I are not over there. Does that mean we don't care? No. But I don't know them. There are people over there that do. And I think we miss that so many times in the sense of that we've got to take Memorial Day to recognize the legacy and the life of that deceased, that one who's not here, acknowledging that death took them from us, but there's some things death can never take from you. And those are the things you keep in your heart. Those are the things you keep in your mind. Those are the things that you see every day that were reminders. And it's good to keep reminders, because I always tell people as well, what do I do with those memories? Ryan, y'all have done a great job in honoring your family and your brother. But if we simply acknowledge that they lived and we talk about the good things that they did, but don't go do likewise, I think some ways we miss the point.
Yeah.
And so for me, on Memorial Day is take the greatness of your loved ones who especially served and give their life. Take what they gave and give a little more.
I love it. Thank you so much,
Thank you.
sir.
Appreciate it.